Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Primetime Fantasy Podcast. This is I think our final mock draft. Is this what we're doing?
Yeah, a week before the draft, our final one.
Our final mock draft before the draft starts, of course. And we're gonna do a side by side. I have my final picks, and he has his. Nick has some trades in his. I do not, but we'll mark those as we go on. Nick, are you ready to get into it?
Yep.
All right. First overall pick, I imagine we'll have the same first pick. What do you have going on
You
here?
mean you mean you're not gonna change it on us and do something drastic?
No, the Dolphins don't trade 4 picks for Joe Burrow.
Like CBS has been trying to do for the past couple weeks.
Yeah. Is that your first overall pick?
Yeah, it's pretty. I think Joe Burrow is in 99.9% of mock drafts going number one overall. So,
I would agree with you there.
and we talked about him on the last podcast, and we both think Tua is going to be a better quarterback, but it all lines up for Joe Burrow to go number one overall.
Right, and he's a safer pick than Tua.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Redskins, who do you have going to Redskins?
I have Chase Young. Earlier in a couple mock drafts, I had Tua, but I think it lines up for Chase Young here.
Yep, and I think they solidified their front seven by picking Chase Young. Pretty easy pick, generational talent.
Yep. Just one question there, Garrett. Do you think anyone trades up to number two, or do you think Washington doesn't get enough to move down?
I think they're pretty set on taking Chase Young. I would be surprised if they traded down.
Mm-hmm.
But the team that is most likely to trade down, the Detroit Lions, are on the clock. Is this one of your first trades or what?
Yeah, this is one of my first trades. The Lions trade down to pick 6 with the Chargers.
Okay.
That's my first trade. And with the third pick, the Chargers take to Tunga Viola. I think they try to jump ahead and get the guy that they want.
Tarded. Nice.
Tarded.
Traded to LAC.
Yep.
And then with my third pick, I'm going with Jeff Okudah. I think no matter what situation happens, I don't think they trade down any farther than the 9th pick. And I think no matter what ends up happening, I think Jeff Okudah is going to be the guy that ends up going to Detroit, even if it's not at the 3rd overall pick.
I think the Lions are down to 3 players. I think it's going to be either Okudah, Brown, the defensive tackle from Auburn, or Isaiah Simmons.
Right.
It's going to be one of those 3 guys.
Yep. And if they stay at number 3, which, the whole fan base of Detroit isn't happening, or isn't liking too much, I imagine Jeff Okudah would be the guy. New York Giants, who do you have going there?
I think this one's pretty easy. Over the last week or so, there's a lot of buzz around Isaiah Simmons, and I think the Giants take him here. I think he's going to be a stalwart in the middle of that defense for the next 5 to 10 years, and they can address offensive line later in the draft.
I agree. And Simmons, they need linebacker help. I mean, Alec Ogletree is not a good linebacker, and they signed Blake Martinez, who vastly overrated in my opinion. But Isaiah Simmons is a guy that's going to be all over the field. He's going to be basically the quarterback of the defense. I would agree with Isaiah Simmons being the pick there.
Yep. Yeah, he reminds me a lot of like a Cam Chancellor, Derwin James type of guy. He's athletic and he can play linebacker and safety.
Right. All right.
Garrett, with the Dolphins, who do you have them taking here?
I have them taking Tua Tagovailoa. They've done. I don't buy this hype that the Chargers or not the Chargers. I don't buy the hype that the Dolphins like Herbert more than Tua. I think that's a smokescreen. I would be surprised if they picked her. I mean, I would. It's the Dolphins, but I would be surprised if they picked Herbert over Tua.
Yeah, and I have the Dolphins taking Justin Herbert. Everything you read, obviously Tua's not even available in my mock draft, so
yeah,
they can't even select him. But everything you hear, I guess they're not in love with Tua, so they're not. I mean, if they wanted Tua, they could trade up. They have more ammunition than the Chargers have, but
yeah.
I think they want to keep all 3 first-round picks, and they are going to take Justin Herbert.
All right. So the Chargers, which now in your mock draft is now traded to Detroit's pick. What else are the Lions getting in that trade?
They get the Chargers' 2nd-round pick, which I believe was 37
Yep.
this year, and they get a 2nd-round pick next year. So they move back 3 spots, and they get 2 second-round picks in return.
I was trying to come up with trades in my head, and I feel like that's the most likely one is 2 seconds in that first. If I were
And the Lions get the guy that they wanted all along, and I think they would take Jeff Okudah here. I'll let you finish, Garrett, in a second, but I think the Lions, they would love this scenario where they get the defensive player and they get 2 second-round picks.
Yeah, I would like that scenario as well if I were the Lions. And Jeff Okudah, best corner in the draft, you can run your defense through him, and he can learn a lot from Desmond Trufant, who was just signed there. And now with for the Chargers in my draft, they are taking Justin Herbert. I think it's pretty. I think they're like those are the top 3. There's been some talk about whether Jordan Love might hop up there, but he's going to be more of a mid round pick.
Yeah, he's a lot of development. A lot of development he's going to need. Justin Herbert probably can play. Jordan Love's going to need a lot of time to develop.
Right. Carolina Panthers now on the clock. Who do you have them taking here?
I have them taking Derek Brown, the defensive tackle from Auburn. I believe they were bottom 3 against the run last year. Yeah. They lost Luke Kuechly. Derek Brown could be there for 5+ years, and Matt Rule's just getting there. I feel like Carolina is hitting the reset button, and they want to get a bunch of young guys that will be foundation pieces, and Derek Brown's one of those guys.
I would agree with you there, and yeah, it's all about trying to stop the run. Derek Brown, basically the next Snacks Harrison, who just retired. So, yeah, I
love that Snacks Harrison comparison.
Well, I mean, he's a nose tackle that can basically blocks a bunch of holes, and he's not a generational like pass rusher, but he just really helpful in the run game. That's exactly the guy that Snacks Harrison was. So that's why.
Yeah, I don't think he's ever going to be a great Aaron Donald type interior defensive lineman, but he's going to be able to stop the run, and that's something Carolina needs.
Yep. Arizona Cardinals, a few needs for them. Who do you think they take?
For the Cardinals, I have them taking Tristan Wirfs from Iowa. He fits that offense the best. He's the most athletic offensive lineman in the draft. In Cliff Kingsbury's system, they do a lot of screens. It's a West Coast, aired out offense, and I think he fits best there. What about you?
I don't know if I looked at your mock draft before I started making mine, but I think this is just a match made in heaven. Tristan Wirfs, very athletic offensive tackle, and it would just be such a perfect fit for them here. I don't know if they have a solidified answer at either left or right tackle, but Tristan Wirfs can play both positions, and they can figure out what they want him to do when he makes it to the NFL.
Yeah, I think this is a pick where they want to address offensive line, and they go out and get a guy that they think fits their scheme the best, and that's why they take him.
Exactly. Who do you have the Jaguars taking?
This is where I have another trade, Garrett.
All right.
At this point, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they need to address offensive line the most. So Jacksonville trades down to 14 with Tampa Bay. So Tampa Bay trades up. And with that 9th pick, Tampa Bay takes Jedrick Wills Jr. from Alabama, who played right tackle there, but he played right tackle because Tua was a left-handed quarterback, so he protected Tua's blind side. I think he can play right tackle or left tackle.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. And I'm not going to spoil who Jedrick Wills is going to in my draft. But with the 9th pick, the Jaguars do not trade down. But I do think there's a chance they could trade down with a team like the Atlanta Falcons to take the player that they are going to take, which is C.J. Henderson. So there's a lot of talk about C.J. Henderson potentially being a top 10 pick because it seems like the gap is kind of narrowed between Okudah and Henderson as the number 1 and number 2. And I would not be surprised if Henderson was a top 10 pick in this draft. And the Jaguars need cornerback help, and they're not going to be able to find as good of a cornerback at the number 20th pick.
Yeah, I think it falls off after Henderson. I don't know if it's like the hit rate, but these are 2 surefire guys that are going to be good to great cornerbacks in the next level. And C.J. Henderson has been rising lately. He was like a 20s pick early on, and now I would not be surprised if he ended up being a top 10 pick.
All right, good stuff. Cleveland Browns on the clock. Who do you have them taking?
They take Andrew Thomas from Georgia. This one's pretty easy. I do this pick on almost all my mocks. They need left tackle. They just signed Jack Conklin in free agency. He's going to play right tackle. They need left tackle. That's a position that they struggled with last year with Greg Robinson. So I think Andrew Thomas is a natural fit at left tackle for Cleveland.
Yeah, if I could bet money on this pick, I would bet Andrew Thomas going to the Browns. I think that's pretty easy. And he's the most. I think he's the most NFL ready left tackle in this draft.
Yeah, I don't see him busting like a couple of guys could. I think he's going to be good too. If he ends up being great, so be it.
Right. All right. Number 11, the New York Jets.
This one I have them taking Mekhi Becton. This one, at this point in the draft, the Jets take the best player available, and Mekhi Becton, you can argue, is a top 5 prospect. Hence the term prospect, because he's not a finished product yet, but he is a very intriguing prospect, and the Jets can't pass him up here.
Yep, I agree. And I definitely looked at your mock draft before we started doing this because I also have Mekhi Becton going to the Jets. And the Jets are a team that's not ready to win now. And if you put Becton in a system that's trying to win now, I think he's going to end up suffering because of it, because he's going to need that time to develop.
Yep. Hey, and I'm just looking at our mock real quick here. Obviously, we had a trade, but we have 9 out of the 11 players to teams selected correctly. So you did look at my mock draft.
That's insane.
Moving on to the Raiders, Garrett. I have them staying put here. I have them taking. This is one's tough to argue because you love Jerry Jeudy, and I still like him a lot. And I like Jerry Jeudy when I was watching him in college. He was my favorite receiver for draft prospects, but I'm on to the CeeDee Lamb train, baby. This guy is an absolute freak. Get him the ball in space, and he is just an animal after the catch. I think John Gruden will fall in love with this guy. And do the Raiders really want another Alabama wide receiver? I mean, they just went through the Amari Cooper madness. Do they really want another Alabama guy? I don't think so.
It's very slim, and there's a lot of people that have CeeDee Lamb above Jerry Jeudy, but you're right. I am on the Jerry Jeudy train, and that's who I have going to the Raiders. Either way, I fully expect them to take a wide receiver here because I don't see any of the teams above. Maybe the Jets, maybe the Jaguars. I don't see any of the teams above taking a wide receiver.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the teams ahead of them. Unless someone trades up to get a receiver, I think the Raiders are in prime position to get the first receiver off the board, whoever they want.
Well, if somebody trades up to get a receiver, that's my biggest loser of the draft. I'll just tell you that right now.
Well, yeah, in a draft that's super deep at receiver, I don't know what the reasoning would be to trade up unless you think the number 1 guy is going to be a Hall of Fame player.
Right. All right. Number 13, the Niners.
The Niners are staying put here, and they take your guy, Jerry Jeudy. This would be a great pick for the Niners.
Yeah.
I mean, they lost Emmanuel Sanders. Deebo Samuel was great for them last year. He's going to be even better developing. Jerry Jeudy would fit in right there. I think he'd be the wide receiver 1 on that team. And, wide receiver 1 profile, your bigger receiver. He's a great, excellent route runner. I think he would have a good rapport with Jimmy G, and I think that is a slam dunk pick at 13.
I would agree with you there, and we actually have these picks flip-flopped. I have CeeDee Lamb going there. They go for a little bit more speed with this pick rather than the kind of all-around talent that Jerry Jeudy would bring. So,
yeah, Jerry Jeudy's an excellent route runner. It's just whoever you prefer. CeeDee Lamb's better with the ball in his hand, so it's whatever you prefer. I don't see either Lamb or Jeudy being bust. I think they are going to hit in the NFL.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what team they go to. I think they're going to end up doing pretty well.
Yep. And Garrett, this was pick 14 for the Buccaneers. They traded up to 9 in my mock draft, so this pick belongs to the Jaguars. And they will take Javon Kinlaw, the defensive tackle from South Carolina. Many people actually like him more than Derek Brown because they think his ceiling's higher. He's a better pass rusher than Derek Brown. And they take Kinlaw here.
I like this pick, and they absolutely need defensive line help. I have them addressing that later in my mock, but yeah, Javon Kinlaw, you're right, better pass rusher than Derek Brown, and that also could be a top 10 pick. Easily could be there at number 9 for the Jaguars.
Yeah, and it's important to note they traded away Calais Campbell. They need help on that defensive line. They already have Josh Allen on the edge. They need someone in the middle, and Javon Kinlaw he's a really good, highly rated prospect.
All right. And now that we are at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers pick, I have them taking Jedrick Wills Jr. too. And what an absolute stud to fall down to number 14. This is my favorite offensive tackle in the draft. And if he were to fall to 14, I mean, Tom Brady's probably, lighting the fireworks and popping the champagne. So,
Hey, we both have Wills going to Tampa Bay. What a shock.
no.
Different spots.
All right. Good stuff. Number 15, the Denver Broncos.
I'm interested to see who you have here, Garrett.
All right.
You give your pick first. I want to see if you have the same guy as me.
Okay. My number 15 pick is going to be Henry Ruggs III, speedy wide receiver. Is that who you have?
You've been looking at my mock drafts.
All right. Speedy wide receiver. They absolutely need a slot guy. Cortland Sutton's great, but he can't carry the team by himself. And it is a pass first team. I mean, Philip Lindsay, not the greatest running back in the world. So, fastest wide receiver in the draft. I think they would really appreciate a guy like Henry Ruggs at the number 15 spot.
And I think he would fit well in this offense. Drew Lock has a great arm. He has a really good arm. Altitude in Denver, they can throw the ball deep. They already have Cortland Sutton there, who's just a very good young receiver. And Henry Ruggs is a smaller burner. I think they would fit well next to each other.
All right. Now going to the Atlanta Falcons, the number 16 pick. Nick,
before you say anything, I guarantee you we have the same pick. Because I know you love this guy here. I have the Falcons taking Caleb Chase on from LSU. They need help all throughout their entire roster. This is a team that made the Super Bowl a few years ago. And with injuries, with the salary cap, they need to replenish young talent, and they go out and get an edge rusher and Chase on.
I love Chase on. You're right, but I do not.
Oh, wait a minute! Wait a minute! What?
I do not have him going here. I have them taking a guy who's already been taken in your mock, Javon Kinlaw.
Oh,
how does?
Yeah, that makes sense.
All right. How does he fall to number 16? Beyond me. But if he does, the Falcons can't pass up on that. They absolutely need him. They can put him there right next to Grady Jarrett, and they would really appreciate it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Now I would take Kinlaw over Chase on as well.
Well, I think Chase on is a higher ceiling than Kinlaw does personally. But I think there's a lot of teams that are lower on Chase on. So just going for that realism factor as well.
Yep. All right, Garrett, this is where I have another trade. I have the Dallas Cowboys trading down, and the team trading up is the Minnesota Vikings from 22. And the Vikings trade up, and they get C.J. Henderson, the defensive back from Florida. They need help on the they need defensive back help badly. They lost Xavier Rhodes. They lost Trey Waynes. They need help badly there. Henderson's a guy who's highly touted, and the Vikings want to get their hands on him. And so they trade up to get him without the risk of him getting taken beforehand.
This would an excellent pick for Minnesota Vikings. I think if they were to trade number 22 and 25, not saying that's what you have, but if they were to do that, I would totally understand because the rest of these guys in here are either risks or not day one starting material, which is what they need on that defense. So I like that pick.
Yeah, and in this trade, before you make your pick real quick, they did not give up the 25th pick. They gave up future draft picks. So they still going to keep that 25th pick. So it makes sense for them to move up, 5 spots?
Yeah.
And they go out and they get their defensive back. In Dallas, and I'm gonna shock you, Dallas, I love the player Dallas picks. So they can trade down and get the guy they still want.
Awesome. And
accumulate draft picks.
We might actually have the same guy. I don't know how you feel about him, but I have Xavier McKinney going at number 17 to the Dallas Cowboys. He's my favorite safety in the draft. I think he's being really underlooked, and I think he's going to end up being a mid-round pick, even if it's not to the Cowboys. I think he'll end up finding a place in this first round.
Yeah, I think Dallas needs help in the defensive backfield, and Xavier McKinney is probably the best safety in this draft. You could argue another guy, but I like McKinney there to Dallas. They need that help.
All right, number 18, the Miami Dolphins. A lot of different directions they could go here. Where do you have them taken?
I have them taking wide receiver Justin Jefferson from LSU. This is the guy that I'm very highly on. I think he could even be a better pro than Henry Ruggs because I think he's a little bit more consistent. He's not, Henry Ruggs could bust because he's a speed guy. We've seen the John Rosses of the world bust. It's no guarantee. Justin Jefferson, every time you watch LSU, you couldn't help but see the guy on the field. He's just an absolute monster. I compare him to a guy that I I like in fantasy football Juju Smith-Schuster. I think he is going to be a great pick there, and he will fit alongside Devontae Parker.
All right, good stuff. Justin Jefferson there. I have them reaching on an offensive tackle in Josh Jones. This is a guy who's should be a day 2 pick, but because there's a lot of teams with offensive line needs, he's going to end up being taking this pick. There's also a chance that some teams value Austin Jackson higher than him. I'm not a big Austin Jackson guy myself, so that's why I have Josh Jones going here at number 18.
Yeah, and it's important to note that the Miami Dolphins need offensive line help. They traded away Laramie Tunsil to the Texans at the beginning of last year. And so they just drafted a quarterback in my mock and Justin Herbert. So, and obviously I believe it was Tua in your mock, Garrett.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they go out and they get an offensive lineman. I like Josh Jones. I think he is, after that tier of the Jedrick Wills, Becton, Thomas, and Wirfs, I think he is the next best offensive lineman.
Good stuff. Who do you have the Las Vegas Raiders taking? You saw them take CeeDee Lamb in your mock earlier. Who do you have them taking with the number 19 pick?
This is another foundational pick. They went out and they signed the name's escaping me. I believe it was Kwiatkowski, Garrett, the linebacker.
Yep, and then Corey Jefferson,
Corey
right?
Littleton.
Corey Littleton.
No, Corey Littleton.
Yeah.
He's one of my favorite linebackers to watch because he can cover. Not a lot of linebackers can cover. But they go out and they get a young linebacker in Kenneth Murray from Oklahoma. I was higher on Patrick Queen, but everything you read about Kenneth Murray, this guy is an absolute he's a brilliant football player, and he's a leader, someone that you want in your locker room. And I think John Gruden will want this guy. So they go out and they get a stalwart on offense and a stalwart on defense.
I really like that pick, and I've had them mocked. I've had Murray and Queen mocked to the Raiders before, but I think it wouldn't be a Raiders draft without a little bit of risk. So that's why they're going to take Christian Fulton in my mock draft. He's a cornerback from LSU. I wasn't very high on him until I learned that he played the entire last year with an ankle injury, so that kind of explains some of the inconsistencies there. I liked Fulton when he was consistent. He showed flashes of being a great NFL player, and if he's able to heal up, then he could be a great player for the Raiders.
Yeah, you're talking about consistency. He had a couple games on national TV where people saw him get burned a lot, and I think other than the big play, he needs to work on giving up the big play. But other than that, I think he's a fine prospect, and the Raiders need help on defense. They traded away Garrett Conley to the Texans, so they don't really have that guy there. They have Trayvon Mullen, who they drafted last year, but that's about it. And so they go out and they get a defensive back. I have no problem with that one.
All right, good stuff. Number 20, the Jacksonville Jaguars. They took Javon. Nope. Yeah, they did take Javon Kinlaw in your mock. Which direction do they go at number 20?
They go defense again. The Jaguars, they pride themselves on defense. They can score 12 points a game, and they'll win 12-11. The Jaguars take Xavier McKinney, the safety from Alabama. They have Ronnie Harrison there at strong safety, but I think Xavier McKinney can fit in at free safety or whatever you want to call that position. The last defender on the field. I think he'll fit in there on that defense. I think I would love that pick. They are replenishing their defense, and they get two really good defensive prospects in this draft.
Yep, they absolutely need a guy like Xavier McKinney, and I have them going defense as well. In my mock, they're going to go with A.J. Epineza, the defensive lineman from Iowa. A lot of people see him as an edge. I think he'll fit better as an interior lineman, and and a lot of people. I think he falls because he's a little undersized for being an interior lineman, and people don't really know what his place is, but he's so versatile, and he can play edge, inside, outside, whatever you need. That's A.J. Epineza, and I think he'd fit great with the Jacksonville Jaguars.
It's interesting that we both have them taking two defensive players in the first round. Did you give them any thought of addressing the offense in round one?
I usually mock Jerry Jeudy to them as like a best player available, but they have to address those needs. I mean, the defense is like the stalwart of their, not the stalwart, but you know what I mean, of their team.
It's what they pride themselves on.
Right.
Yep.
So when you trade everybody away, you kind of have to replenish that in with some young talent. So, yeah.
Yep.
Number 21.
I don't hate the pick there for that one, Garrett.
All right, good stuff. Number 21, Philadelphia Eagles. Who do you have them taking?
I have them taking T. Higgins from Clemson.
Wow.
The Eagles need wide receiver help so badly. I think the best fit for the Eagles would be Justin Jefferson, but he's not going to be there. I think the Eagles could be a team you got to watch out for on draft night, that they could trade up and maybe get a Jerry Jeudy, CD Lamb, one of those guys. But I think they stay put here and they get T. Higgins. I believe he was 6'3". He's a bigger body receiver. They need help at wide receiver. You can't count on Alshon Jeffrey. Deshaun Jackson was hurt all of last year. JJ Arcega-Whiteside, the draft pick in the second round last year, did not produce well until they go out and get Carson Wentz a weapon and T. Higgins.
I have them getting an offensive weapon as well. I have them getting Justin Jefferson. You say there's no chance he shows up at this pick. You're probably right.
He showed up in this mock for you. So,
but this is also without trades and considering stuff like that. So Justin Jefferson to the Eagles, I think would be perfect. There is a chance that teams like the Dolphins, the Raiders, if they don't go wide receiver with the first pick, there's a chance that those teams, even the Jaguars, could take him.
right.
Yeah, I like, and T. Higgins is probably I don't know if he's the next best wide receiver on my list, but probably, yeah. So I like that pick for them.
And it's important to note we both have them taking wide receiver, which shows their glaring need. They need to address that position.
And they also
very, very badly.
They also have a pretty big need at defensive back, and there's a chance they could take a linebacker. So I wouldn't be surprised if they go defense with that pick either.
Before we move on, real quick, Garrett, I saw a report weeks ago. Remember when the Hopkins trade went out? I was listening to Mike Florio of Pro Football Talk, a guy I like, and he's plugged into the league. I believe he brought up the fact that the Eagles could have offered their 21st pick for DeAndre Hopkins, and that's a trade I would have done immediately, especially on a team like Philadelphia that's ready to win now. Hopkins is still young enough. I mean, you can't tell me any of these receivers you draft at 21 is going to be better than DeAndre Hopkins, who, in my opinion, is a top 5 receiver in football.
Well, I didn't hear about that report, but yeah, I would do that if I were the Eagles. That's really easy. So I guess that means they're going to go defense with the 21st pick, right? Because they wouldn't double down on a wide receiver at 21 instead of DeAndre, right?
Well, they don't have him anymore, but that's what I heard the report that they were willing to offer the pick, and I guess Billy O'Brien decided he's going to do what he thought was best and get a second-round pick. So
yeah, and
then turn that into Brandon Cook. So there's just a lot going on in that situation. We don't want to spend too much time on that one. Garrett, 22. Who do you have the Vikings taking there?
I have the Minnesota Vikings taking K'Lavon Chaisson, and you kind of look at it. It's like, how does he fall this far? It beats me. He's a top 10 player in my opinion. He's so versatile. He can drop back into coverage. He can rush the quarterback. He can like sit in coverage and then like blitz the run as well. There's so much going on with Chaisson, and there's not enough teams looking at him. So it surprises me that he falls this far. But if the Vikings are able to get their hands on him, they will most definitely do so.
Yeah, I highly doubt he falls this far, but if he does, I think the Vikings would love this pick. They lost Everson Griffin, who still technically could come back, but he's a free agent right now. They need to get someone opposite of Danielle Hunter, who's one of the best pass rushers in football, and I would love that pick for the Vikings. And I would hate it if I was in the NFC North, which I'm not. So moving on, or Garrett, this is where I had my trade.
Yeah.
So I had the Dallas Cowboys trading down, and let's see what your opinion is on this pick. First off, before I say it, do you know who I have them picking? Because this will tell if you've read my mock drafts or not.
I think so, because I think we had a discussion about this pick.
All right, I have the Dallas Cowboys taking Cesar Ruiz, the center from Michigan.
Grief, dude.
Why you hate this pick so much? You had him going to the Seahawks like 3 picks later. They traded down. Obviously, the news out that Travis Frederick, the All-Pro center, has retired due to health concerns. And the center is one of the most important positions on the field, especially in the offensive line. They go out and get a guy who I think is very underrated. I think if he was a top 20 pick, I would not hate that at all. I think they should stay at 17 and pick him. But they trade down, they get picks, and then they get Cesar Ruiz, who I think is going to be a terrific football player.
All right, here's my problem with the pick. They have so many pressing needs on defense, and for them to not address any
They can address that that later in the draft.
But they can address interior O linemen in the draft. There's so many like day 2 picks that would be perfect at the interior lineman. John Simpson's a guy that comes to mind. There's another guy that escapes my mind too, but the second round would be perfect for getting an interior O lineman. Cesar Ruiz
I think Cesar Ruiz is a notch, but he's like the Jeffrey Okuda of cornerbacks. He's on his own tier at center position, and that's why I think he's a first-round pick.
Lloyd Cushenberry, you can get him in. I don't know if he's on his own tier, but there's guys that you can get in the second round that are almost as good. And you have so many needs on defense that if you can get a generational player, not a generational player, but a really good player like Javon Kinlaw, Caleb Von Chason, Xavier McKinney, you absolutely have to do it. They have no corners. They're starting IKEA workers at corner. They absolutely need,
Hey, put some names on there. Jordan Lewis, the former Michigan man at cornerback.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. They got one guy. So yeah, that's why I wouldn't hate it because it does address a need, but I would disagree with that pick if that actually were to happen.
And we're gonna disagree because that's one of my favorite picks of the draft. I think Dallas would love that pick. They don't have a starting center right now because they never had to address the center position with Travis Frederick there. I love this pick. Moving on to the New England Patriots. I have them taking the linebacker from LSU, Patrick Queen. A lot of people might say, why not a quarterback here? Well, everything I hear, they are going to ride with Jarrett Stidham, or at least give him the opportunity to start. So they're not going to take Jordan Love or, Jacob Eason here. They're going to ride with Jarrett Stidham for at least a year, and they're going to take Patrick Queen. They lost Jamie Collins to the Lions in free agency. They need to replenish that defense, and they go out and get an athletic linebacker in Queen.
I like that pick for them, and nobody knows what the Patriots are going to do. That's why I have them picking Jordan Love, because there's a great chance that they do pick him, and the Patriots are one of these teams that they don't really care about where they draft a player. They could trade Jarrett Stidham next year if they wanted to. It doesn't really matter to them. They were ready to trade Gronk as soon as he retired. So, yeah. But Jordan Love gets some quarterback competition in there. But I also like the Patrick Queen pick. They absolutely need a guy like that. They could also go wide receiver with this pick if a guy like Justin Jefferson was still available. So, yeah, I like this pick for them.
Yep. Moving on to the Saints, Garrett. The Saints stay put, and they get a guy that they never thought would fall to them. They get Jordan Love, the quarterback from Utah State. Why did they take Love here? Well, they don't have Teddy Bridgewater in the fold anymore. You could say Taysom Hill, but is he a 5 to 10 year guy? I don't know. They're going to take Jordan Love, and he's going to sit behind Drew Brees, and he's going to learn. And Jordan Love's comparison, not saying he's this player, but he has the same attributes, I guess you could say, the same playing style as Patrick Mahomes. So if they can develop him behind Drew Brees for a year, I think Sean Payton would love that, and I think they get their guy for the future.
Yeah, I like that pick, and I think they absolutely need to take a quarterback in this year's draft. I wouldn't be surprised if in the second round they're able to grab a guy, or if they trade up to get a guy like either Jacob Eason or Jalen Hurts. So they absolutely need a quarterback. I don't think they expected Teddy Bridgewater to sign with another team this year. I have them taking Patrick Queen. They absolutely need more linebackers in there. They have Demario Davis, who's about as old as my dad, and nobody else. Alex Anzalone's not getting the job done. They absolutely need Patrick Queen, who could also be an edge rusher, but I see him more as a coverage linebacker personally. And whether he goes to the Patriots or Saints, I think this would be a great fit for him.
Yeah, and I think he would fit in that nasty, the Saints defense. They have that play style where they're always attacking. I think he would fit in there with Cameron Jordan and Sheldon Rankins and that whole entire defense. They don't need a lot of defensive back help. They have Marcus Williams, who's a really good safety. They have, the names Marshawn Lattimore, underrated cornerback. They got the defensive backfield covered. They go out and get a linebacker, and I think he would fit well in that defense.
Awesome stuff. Number 25, the Minnesota Vikings. Who's their second pick?
The guy that you had taking 20th overall to the Jaguars, they take AJ Epinesa. The Vikings, like I said, they address the cornerback position with their first pick in the first round. They go out and get a defensive end. And I think they take him and they move off of Evers and Griffin, and that the return possibility there is no longer after they take Epinesa.
I got you. And I like that pick for them. I've had them mocked Epinesa at 22 and 25 at some of my past mock drafts. So I like that pick. But for the Vikings, I'm going to go with kind of a, I don't want to say this is a shocker, but I'm going to go with Jeff Gladney. He's not an outside corner, which is absolutely what they need, but I think he's the next best available corner. I would rank him higher than Christian Fulton personally. If it weren't for the ankle concerns, maybe not. But Jeff Gladney, slot corner, like I said about the Cowboys, they're starting IKEA workers out there, so they absolutely need corners that'll be able to start day one, and I think Gladney would be a great slot corner day one.
Before we move on, Garrett, were you ever thinking at wide receiver here at any point in the first round for the Vikings with their 2 picks?
It says that it's a need, but I don't hate the receiver corps they have now. They still have Kyle Rudolph. They still have Irv Smith Jr., who had a couple of good games there late in the season. Adam Thielen, obviously incredible. So I wouldn't be surprised if they get a receiver either with the 25th pick or even in the second round. But I think there's a lot more pressing needs there, personally.
Okay. The Dolphins at pick 26.
I already know who you're picking for this one.
No, you don't.
Oh, I don't.
I guarantee you don't know this pick.
Okay.
It's the defensive end from Penn State, Yatir Gross-Matos.
Oh.
This is a guy that's, very athletic. A guy that you would try to compare him to would be like the name's already escaping me right now. Daniil Hunter type player, where he's just a freak athlete. He looks like a basketball player at defensive end. And I think the Miami Dolphins, they're trying to develop a culture there. And down there, they went offense in my first 2 picks, and they go out and get a defensive end here at 26.
I don't hate this pick at all. The range where he's going is very different. He could either be a late first or early second. I don't have him in my mock draft, spoiler alert, but I would not be surprised if he were to go to a team like the Dolphins, the Ravens, even the Vikings, the pick before.
Who did you think I had here? Because you seem so convinced.
This is who I thought you had. This isn't who I'm picking, but I just started typing it. I don't know if you saw.
DeAndre
Swift. Yeah. You're big on DeAndre Swift, so I figured. Or no, you're more on a Jonathan Taylor guy, aren't you?
I think they're both going to be fantasy monsters next year, given the right opportunity.
Right.
Which is a precursor to who I have picked later in the draft. Who do you have here, Garrett?
I have Kyle Duggar. This is the first big surprise pick of the draft. He's not the next best safety. I would put Winfield above him, but Kyle Duggar out of Lenore Rhine, small school guy, but he had a lot of big plays there, and very rangy corner. He immediately takes the place where what's his name? Minkah Fitzpatrick left, and I think Kyle Duggar would be a good pick for them. I see him more of as a second round player, but he could very easily be taken in the first round.
This is one of those guys you think that is a surprise pick in the first round. Normally every year there's maybe 1 or 2 guys that you're like, wow, that guy went in the first round.
Yeah. I don't know if that was a question or a statement. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it was a little bit of both. Seattle Seahawks, Garrett, 27. Who do you have them picking?
I would bet money on this pick happening. It's Cesar Ruiz. There's no chance that he gets picked any higher.
The guy you just ripped. Apart.
No,
5 picks earlier.
No, I would rip him apart if what's the team? The Cowboys took him.
Cowboys.
But I think the Seahawks, they absolutely need a center, or not a center. They need interior O lineman. I think he played a left guard in high school. I'm not sure about that. But
whoa, getting into high school. I didn't go that far back.
But
in prep school football, was he playing left tackle?
Oh, I think so, actually. I don't know. Cesar Ruiz, I think this is the perfect pick for them. It's the most demanding need. They might need edge rusher, but there is a chance that Jadeveon Clowney does come back, given if he lowers its salary a little. So, that's who I have taken. Who do you have?
I have them taking the tackle from Houston, Josh Jones. I think Seattle needs to address the offensive line. Russell Wilson's running around for his life. Seems like every single time I watch the Seahawks. They go out and get a tackle. He can play left or right. He's probably going to be a left tackle and the Seahawks need offensive line bad. And I think if Cesar Ruiz was there, that would be my guy. But the Cowboys took him, so they go out and get a tackle from Houston.
I like that pick, and I think Josh Jones figures more as a left tackle, in my opinion. And Russell Okun's still there, so we can learn from a guy who's won Super Bowls, who's been in the league for, I think, 10 plus years. So I think that would be a good pick for them. Good long-term pick. Baltimore Ravens, number 28. Who do you have?
They take wide receiver Denzel Mims from Baylor. This guy is a big, rangy receiver. They already have Marquise Hollywood Brown. They don't need a smaller guy. They need to get a guy to go out and make contested catches. That was Michael Crabtree 2 or 3 years ago, but they need to get a young guy. There's no big pressing needs here. They got quarterback figured out. They got running back is solid. Offensive line they got one of the better offensive lines in football. They could address it later in the draft, but left tackle Ronnie Stanley he's young and he's great. I think they go out and get a weapon for Lamar Jackson and Denzel Mims. What about you, Garrett?
I like that pick for them, and Denzel Mims. I read on Twitter a day or 2 days ago that he had a broken hand during this past season was his junior year, so that would have meant this past year he played with a broken hand, which explains a lot of the drop balls that people were concerned about. But yeah,
it's kind of hard to catch the ball when your hand's broken. But I never tried that before.
But if that's the case, then he could go just as high as this. I don't have him in my first round, but there's a good chance that he could be picked even higher than a guy like T. Higgins.
Yep.
A guy that I have, how does he fall this far? No clue. Kenneth Murray would be an absolute beast. Immediately, he's the next Ray Lewis on this defense. Could you imagine? A bit extreme? Is that a bit extreme?
Oh my goodness. You had me until I heard Ray Lewis. Garrett, I know you're young, Garrett, but have you ever watched Ray Lewis? This guy was one of the 3 or 4 best linebackers
That's
in
not
history.
I know.
Oh my goodness.
It's not what I meant. I think he would take
Okay, hold on. We're gonna just when you're editing the video, Garrett, just cut it out and just replace it. We're restarting. All right, Garrett, who are the Ravens taking 28th overall?
They're still I'm not cutting that out. They're taking Kenneth Murray. I think he's not the next Ray Lewis, but he takes the place that Ray Lewis left on that team. And now
Oh, that's what you're trying to say. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, CJ Mosley kind of picked that up, but I think Kenneth Murray would bring that more into fruition. And he could
you can compare you compare him more to CJ Mosley than you can to Ray Lewis, don't you?
Yeah, but I think Kenneth Murray is more not diverse. What's the word? He can rush the passer. He can rush the passer. He's a good run stopping linebacker, and he can also drop back into coverage. Very similar to Patrick Queen. I think Patrick Queen can do coverage a little bit better. That's why I have him ranked higher. But Kenneth Murray can kind of fill that void that Ray Lewis left. He's not the next Ray Lewis. But.
And I like that. I like that pick, and I like the fit. I think he would shine in that Baltimore defense. It seems like that's one of those places where an organization, you get a guy and you're going to succeed because it's the Baltimore Ravens and they constantly develop young players. It's not like the Lions where it's, you get drafted there and it's mediocrity. You go somewhere else and you're an all-pro. Eric Ebron.
Yeah. Soon to be Jared Davis, probably.
Right.
Tennessee Titans at number 29. Who do you have them picking?
I don't know much about this guy, but I know they need to replace Jack Conklin on the right side of the line. They go out and get Austin Jackson, the tackle from USC. Everything you read about the guy is he has, pretty high potential. And I think the Titans address the right side of the offensive line with Austin Jackson.
I don't think Austin Jackson plays right tackle in the NFL, so I would disagree with that pick. But it makes sense from your point of view.
It's easier to play right tackle than it is left tackle.
Okay, yeah, I would give you that.
And they already have Taylor Lewan at left tackle, who's a very good player.
Right.
Hothead, but he's a good player.
Yeah, I agree with you there. The Tennessee Titans, for my mock draft, they address the defensive side of the ball, and that's going to be Trevon Diggs. This is a bit of a reach as well. I'm not as big on this guy as some people are, but they absolutely need outside corner help. and this is going to be at least the second half of the first round is going to be the reaching on corners draft. There's a good chance that they take a guy like AJ Terrell, Jalen Johnson, guys like that. But they take Trevon Diggs in this mock draft.
Yeah, I think the longer this free agency period goes on, Garrett, you're talking about how Clowney probably returns to Seattle, which I think happens too. I think Logan Ryan, the cornerback, who was, he's an older cornerback, but he's still pretty good. He was there last year. He intercepted Brady's last throw in Foxborough as a Patriot. I think Logan Ryan probably returns. So I don't know if cornerback's the need here in the first round.
Okay. I don't know what Logan Ryan's going to do. So, yeah, you might be right there.
He has a superstar development on Madden, so.
I do know that.
The Madden reference.
Yeah, you got to toss some of those in there. Green Bay Packers are number 30. Nick, is your room all right? Are you guys just like cutting down the wall?
Oh yeah, it's good. Is there a lot of background noise?
Yeah, it sounds like someone's like shooting a gun through the window or something like in Call of Duty. Number 30, Green Bay Packers. Who do you have them picking?
This is going to be my surprise pick of the first round. The Packers take quarterback Jacob Eason from Washington. Why you sound so shocked? Aaron Rodgers is not the same quarterback he was 4 years ago. It doesn't mean he's not really good, but he's getting up in age. I don't see him playing until he's 45 like Brady. They go out and get a guy, Eason, 6'6", got a big arm, and I think they sit him behind Aaron Rodgers, whether Aaron Rodgers likes it or not. And I see who you have picked there.
I think T. Higgins would be a great pick for them. The wide receiver from Clemson, great outside receiver. They absolutely need one, and that's who they get. I completely disagree with the Jacob Eason pick. I think the Packers are a win now team. They hired Matt LaFleur so they can kind of combine his mind with Aaron Rodgers and try to make the offense a lot better than it was under Mike McCarthy. I would be really shocked if they went with a guy like Jacob Eason. They might go quarterback 3rd, 4th round, maybe a Jake Fromm from Georgia. But yeah.
He pulled that one on there just like that.
He's the whitest quarterback I can remember from this draft. Or else there's that guy that they just wrote an article about, Lynn Bowden from Kentucky. They could pick him. He's expected to be the next Taysom Hill, is what people are saying.
Wow, that's high praise.
I know. Number 31, San Francisco 49ers. Who do you have them picking?
They take the guy you had picked 2 picks ahead. They take Trayvon Diggs. The cornerback's a huge need here. Other than Richard Sherman, who's aging, they need to get cornerback help. Akilo Witherspoon's not the guy. They go out and get Trayvon Diggs, the cornerback. They need defensive back help badly, Garrett.
Yep, I would agree with that. That's why I'm going to have them take AJ Terrell. In my mock draft, I forgot what I was saying. Cornerback from Clemson, also a guy that's not necessarily first-round talent, but they absolutely need corner. So do a lot of these teams in the late first round. So I would not be surprised if AJ Terrell or a guy like Jalen Johnson goes late first round here.
Yep, they need that position badly.
All right. Kansas City Chiefs.
All right.
I imagine
my favorite pick of the first round, and this is the guy who's going to dominate fantasy football. Who cares about Damian Williams? He's a nobody. They go out and get DeAndre Swift, the running back from Georgia. This guy is an absolute beast. He can do it all. I just love seeing DeAndre Swift next to the Kansas City Chiefs. And the Chiefs have a luxury pick here. You got same pick. He can catch the ball in the backfield. I like Jonathan Taylor as a runner, and I think he's got the same type of athleticism as a Barkley. I don't know if he's at level, but they go out and get DeAndre Swift, who's my number 1 running back, and he is going to be a monster in fantasy. You can book that.
Yeah,
on the record right now.
DeAndre Swift would be fantastic for the Kansas City Chiefs. They absolutely need him. Damian, Darryl, DeAndre, Derek, Williams.
None of those Williams and Kip Rooks. Even your guy Darwin Thompson. Is a nobody.
Get him out. Ship him out of here. DeAndre Swift.
Priority shipping. 1 day. First day mail. Priority shipping.
Right at Kip Rooks' door. Just. DeAndre Swift. He's a 3 down.
Right out to the XFL.
The XFL's done. He can't go. We ship him out to rugby or something. I don't know.
The
DeAndre
practice squad.
Yeah. DeAndre Swift, 3-down running back. In my opinion, the best running back in this draft, and a lot of people's opinion as well. Jonathan Taylor is good, but a lot of scouts have highlighted he has fumbling issues. So, next to Mir Abdullah, question mark? No, I'm kidding. But DeAndre Swift should definitely be the pick at number 32. Match made in heaven. If he got picked earlier to a team like, say, the Dolphins, I would be pretty disappointed. I will say that.
Yeah, I think this is great for real life football. It would suck for teams in the AFC because you're not going to beat the Chiefs. But this is great for real life football, and this is great for fantasy. So root for fantasy.
That's what we're about on Primetime Fantasy. We root for fantasy over here. Do any of these wide receivers wide receiver 1 with the teams that they get drafted to? I can move it up to kind of.
I think there's only one guy that would be. None of these guys I don't think are going to be wide receiver 1s in fantasy because I just don't see them being there right away. There's so many great receivers, right. But I think CD Lamb and Jerry Jeudy can be guys who maybe as the season develops, week 8 or 9, these guys end up being wide receiver 2s as they get used to the NFL football.
I would agree with that. And whichever wide receiver goes to the 49ers at the number 13 pick, if they were to pick a wide receiver, that's who I would put as like the number 1 rookie wide receiver above everybody else by far.
Yep. I think Jeudy and Lamb are going to be very productive fantasy receivers, whether that's week 1 or that's week 8 or 9. They will be very productive.
Well, I don't know if Derek Carr with his soft arm might not be able to sling the ball to whoever.
Hey, all he needs to do is throw the ball 12 yards down the field to CeeDee Lamb and let CeeDee Lamb run for 60. So that's where that fits in.
Good point. I like that. This is
right
out.
Here, before we go, there's one big rumor out there a couple days ago. Odell Beckham Jr. going to be traded. What are your thoughts on that?
I saw that, and it's so baloney, dude. There's no way they trade him. I mean, I said that about the Giants after they traded him 1 year after they signed him to a massive 5-year extension. So anything's possible. But I hope they don't. I mean, Odell's such a nutcase as is. Can you imagine what he'd be saying if he got traded to a team like the Vikings or
the Vikings? Stephon Diggs 2.0.
Yeah. Hitting his helmet on the sideline.
Proposing to a football net, kicker net.
And one last question for you before we go. Where are you going to be getting your NFL draft coverage from?
Isn't it all going to be on one network? Isn't Roger Goodell doing it from the basement?
Yeah, but I mean, NFL Network has one.
ESPN or NFL Network. I'm not watching CBS Sports, BS, whatever it's called. All those guys are guys that got fired from Fox Sports or ESPN. That's just all it is. The Danny Cannells of the world, all those guys are guys that couldn't handle the big networks. I will never watch CBS. All those guys are terrible. Their mock drafts are brutal. It gives me like a heartache when I watch CBS Sports.
All right. I highlight the BS on CBS.
Yes.
I imagine my draft lineup is going to be my big screen with ESPN as always, and on my small screen I'll probably have the Pat McAfee, AJ Hawk watch along because those guys are pretty electric to listen to. So, all right.
Yeah, Pat McAfee is like the Michael Scott of football of the NFL.
I like that. Anything else you want to say before we take off?
Nope. I think we both had a pretty good mock draft. I don't think we had, obviously I'm pretty biased, but I don't think I had a terrible pick. What about you, Garrett? Did you like your mock draft?
There's some picks that it's like, a lot, especially the cornerback picks. It's like, who do you picked above the other? A lot of them, line up the same. But I like most of my picks. The Cesar Ruiz pick on your mock draft might make me cringe, but that's okay. We can live with that.
All right, Garrett.
All right. Good talking with you, Nick.
And that is the end of the mock draft 2.0. Draft next week. Just look at my mock draft, and it will be exactly as planned.
Awesome stuff. All right. We will see you all later. Thank you guys for watching as always. And Primetime Fantasy.